Welcome to Ellsey K Gardens. It's time for another garden tour. So let me show you what's growing in the garden this year. Let's start with a new bed. Over here, and really I should have prepped this, but time is sometimes in short supply. We have a lovely new bed that was just a pit of weeds last year. And it's still kind of a pit of weeds, but much nicer, gentler weeds. I'll have to come through and pull out some of these. It's like a tree of life thing and stuff like that. But the stuff that's supposed to grow in here, I'm quite excited about. I've got some sweet potatoes, a couple plants of that's going to take over. Over here, I have the first flower on my peanuts, and I've got a couple other peanuts that are growing along at this level. And up here, this is a sesame, and here are some chickpeas. So once it gets a little bit of height, a little bit filled in, and I clean up some of the weeds that were really just seeds in the soil that I used, once I clean those out, this is going to be really lovely. In fact, I already think it's quite lovely and quite an improvement from what we had last year. So this is one of our exciting new additions. If you've seen one of my tours before, you might recognize the big garden here, which has not lost any of its charm for me. Let's go around to the side. We'll start over at the peas. Beans starting to climb up. That'll be pretty. Okay. So here, and I'll just collect some since I'm out, I've got some yellow peas. These are snow peas. Quite a gong I brought with me for a bowl, my goodness. Yellow. Different vegetables, I think they kind of belong in families. The red vegetables all have a similar taste, the purple varieties, and my favorite is the yellow. So the yellow are great, but I do have some purple that I grew down here too. And here's some green, just for the contrast. So I come in, I grab a couple for a salad. If you have a small little area, you can see I just plant this right at the edge and the peas grow up my arbor. I think this is a really nice use of space, and it's one thing that I've repeated a couple of years now. Get a couple of those. I can come back and get some more later, but it's nice to carry a bowl around, so as I show things off, I have a place to put them. This bed I didn't quite know what to do with. It was full of roly-poly bugs, so full that they actually turned into a pest, and they killed all my initial seedlings. So I had some extra tomatoes because I started too many this year, and I actually planted them with little collars around them. Little toilet paper rolls or inside-out sticky tape that I put around the stems, and it's done quite well. And then I needed a way to trellis them. So what I've done is I've just set up this mesh thing, and I haven't even started it yet, but my plan is as bits get low to start to pull the vine over to clip onto or weave through these twine bits. So we'll see how that does. So far, the plants do look fairly healthy. I'm not really pruning them either. So much of gardening is experimentation and just seeing what works year to year. And this year, for these ones, I want to see what happens if I don't spend a lot of time pruning in terms of when my harvest comes in, how healthy my plants are. It's not perfect. There are definite confounding factors for the scientists among us, but still kind of neat to see what happens. So I encourage you, if you have a garden, it's fun to play and experiment and just see what's going to grow. Okay, more peas over here. These are all the purple variety, which, despite not tasting quite as good as the yellow, I think, are very beautiful and very easy to see. If you have kids, as I do, these kind of peas are much nicer for little hands or little eyes to spot. So there's an egg song happening over there. I've got some of my radishes here that I'm coming towards the end of my radish harvesting time. Now when I harvest a radish, I like to sort of pinch the bottom here so that I leave a lot of the soil where I want it and I don't spread it all over my mulch. That'll be a good little radish. And you can eat these tops. My family doesn't like them very much, so we tend to feed them to the chickens, and then they go into our eggs. Look at the thorns. That's the first time I've noticed these. This is actually my first year growing eggplant, and that is very interesting. See how that develops later in the season. Okay, should we check and see what that egg song's about? We'll leave this here. Egg songs often mean eggs. Oh, we've got Sparkle here. Hello. I know. Oh, look. Huh. Yep, egg songs mean eggs. I don't think either of those are Sparkle's egg. Yeah, that's bluefish and berries. So Sparkle, unfortunately I spooked her. She'll come back and lay in another couple of minutes here. Put my eggs in my bowl. Ooh. This eggplant too is starting to get those little thorns. If anyone has more experience growing eggplant than me, which means if you've ever grown it and you have any tips, I'd love to hear them. Oh, now here's something I don't like. I've got a dandelion growing in here. I am not a fan of dandelions. There are much better flowers for the pollinators, like these clover that are here. And case in point, there's a bee on the clover, and I have not seen any bees on these dandelions. But for the most part, you might look at these pathways and think that they look chaotic and weedy. But I don't really see that. Of course, I do see the dandelion. I do see things that I want to clear out and trim down. But many of the things that are here are moving in the direction of things that I want to be here or are fine with being here. Like my cilantro coriander that's growing right here. This dill, we see caterpillars all the time on the dill that will turn into swallowtails. This is a volunteer borage that I've let go here, which is great for attracting predator insects, great for pollinators as well. And down here, this is some stuff that I planted, some nice little elfin thyme. You rub it like this and it releases a scent, and I think it's so pretty. And as this stuff grows and I pull out the little leaves of things I don't particularly want from it, gets filled in with the thyme, and I get less and less weed pressure every year, which is fantastic. So I feel much better about the pathways than last year. Plus I can bend now. Moving along. Over here, here's some of my beans that are starting to sprout. And this bed, and many of the other ones that look empty, will fill in later in the season. I have melons and squash and those sorts of things that are just small little plants now. Give it a month and it'll be overgrown with all these big leaves, and I'll be worried about powdery mildew. Oh, another weed. Back here, we've got lots of milkweed. I keep checking the leaves, hoping that a monarch will have laid a little egg. Nope, still no luck. Over here we have the currants, which are coming in. Nice and big and fat and juicy currants right there. We always get enough for us and the birds, which is really quite lovely. And the kids like to come out and eat them. And this is my beautiful hardy kiwi, which is finally starting to take over this trellis. And look at how vigorous this is. And just checking in here. So this did flower this year, but the flowers don't look like they're gonna turn into kiwis for me. These vines typically take several years to actually produce fruit, so I think I've got at least another year coming. Kiwi vines like this also need a male vine to help with the pollination. So when my male vine is a bit more mature, which is quite a bit behind this one, then I'm likely to get fruit as well. I've been overly permissive with the milkweed, letting it pop up and not really cutting it back. So I have to do a bit of waiting as I get through here. But here, this is new this year, a lovely solar-powered light trellis for my raspberries. And these raspberries are just looking really nice and healthy. So looking forward to this harvest. Along with my yellow theme, I've got yellow raspberries growing, which, if you have kids, means that you can tell them, don't pick them until they're pink, and then the kids don't steal all the raspberries. I just love these forget-me-nots. It's on my to-do list to thin this out, but my goodness, they're just pretty. Right here I've got a volunteer sunflower, and this is the year that I learned that sunflowers like to produce a substance into the soil nearby to inhibit the growth of other plants, and therefore it may not be a great companion plant. So I considered whether to pull it out or not, but I thought, well, it's next to my zucchini, and maybe zucchini could be reined in a little bit. It's next to this cucumber as well, so I've got a little bit of a birth, but I haven't noticed that before this year, so maybe it's just okay to see what happens, but I'm always interested in other people's experiences. If you have a cucumber that didn't like being next to the sunflower or something like that. All these things influence your choices for next year, you know? Through here, just looking on my broccoli, not quite time to harvest it yet. But I'm getting these beautiful little offshoots. We've got 5 broccoli plants, and that'll keep us well into broccoli and broccoli cheddar soup and frozen broccoli all the way into the fall. I always recommend broccoli. Ooh, and these are beet greens for my golden yellow beets, again, liking the yellow, and they are quite delicious. So we'll just take a couple of those. You don't have to harvest the whole beet. You can just pull off some of these leaves. And I don't really grow spinach because this is easier to grow and it tastes as good or better. Lots of big ones. I don't know why I've put a sunflower in my own pathway. This is my first year growing haskcaps. Oh, and I've got a couple good ones. So I didn't want to risk the birds getting them. But these should grow a little better or a little easier than blueberries, because blueberries really want an acidic soil, and here in Ontario most of our soil is not acidic. So I need to do quite a bit of amending to try and make a hospitable environment for a blueberry, but these haskcap berries will grow for me just fine as long as I can get to the harvest before the birds. But I have here, I'm not even putting this one in my bowl, I'm going to give one to my cameraman, have one myself. It's good. I do prefer blueberries, so I'm going to keep up the fight for that, but it is good. Pancakes, yeah, they're a win. If you plant chives once, you'll have chives for forever, and I love chives. Chives are great, but I certainly do have more than I know what to do with. I decided to try and grow some grapes up this wall, and they're doing quite well, so I'm excited to see if these little babies actually grow into anything this year. I believe this is a Concord grape, but honestly, I write these things down and then I forget where I wrote them down. And when I finally get them, I sort of compare notes using Google, and sometimes it matches, sometimes it doesn't. And here's my beautiful new front garden with the lovely fence. Just turning this into a wonderful little corner where I have mainly plants that need less daily maintenance. At least that's the idea. I'm planning on having my asparagus and most of my strawberries and blueberries out here eventually. I'm kind of transitioning right now. I've got potatoes. These are all volunteer sunflowers. I just like them. I've got the kids gardening over here as well. This one's my son's garden here. I convinced him that he needed a trellis for his tomato, and now we're working on convincing him that we need to use the trellis and possibly even prune it a bit, but this is where we are so far. Hopefully he still gets some good tomatoes. And his carrots, he's itching to harvest them. And this fence with these flowers, a little later in the season, I'm hoping that they'll just spill over both sides. I would like to put bird houses on these posts. Lots of dreams here and lots of enjoyment. And my first tomatoes. Some gardeners will tell you you should clip off the first flowers and the first fruit so that you get better root development and a stronger, healthier plant. But I couldn't. Oh my goodness, the thought of these tomatoes. Hopefully they make it the whole way and are as delicious as they are in my mind. This is an Italian heirloom tomato, so. Now let's just finish the tour with this little nook that we've sort of been developing. So I've got my hummingbird feeder right here, which there's still a little in there. I filled that 2 days ago, time for me to fill it again. And over here, our lovely little sitting area with my nasturtiums that I've got. They've started to climb up my trellis here. And some of these, oh, that spinach is sad. That's okay. Some of the plants back here, including, I'm quite proud of a prickly pear cactus that is starting to take off. So that's how my garden's doing, or at least how some of it's doing. Certainly had my share of aphids and that sort of thing this year too. But however your garden grows, keep growing as a gardener. And I just realized that I said on this tour, I don't grow spinach, and then referenced my spinach, which wasn't doing so well. So this, I'm calling my spinach, but it's a strawberry spinach, which is not a true spinach. You can eat the leaves, and they do taste a lot like spinach. But what happens is these little seed pods become little red fruits that look a lot like strawberries. And if you leave them until they are quite red, then they taste pretty good as well. They're really good in salads for a little pop of color and a little tiny bit of sweetness. So, okay, fine. I grow a lot of spinach substitutes.